Okay, so I know Masako just covered this, and his was a cool rendition without breaking canon, but man, I just want an actually goody-goody Frostling. So, what am I doing differently? Well, I'm breaking canon just a little, and by just a little I mean a lot. Here, we'll be going through a scenario where Frost was always good, him being born into the world as someone with a far less icy disposition. What if Frost was actually good? The story starts now. Now, we have no idea how old Frost is, but we know Cabba is around 17 to 19 at the least. And Frost is pretty naive, as shown when he trusted Frieza, so we'll say Frost is only 20 or so, making him around Cabba's age. Frost was born to a rather kind and benevolent father named Glacia, who looked eerily similar to Cooler. Glacia wasn't a ruler in the traditional sense though. He mostly governed Frost's home planet, though once the Namekians came, he had to put together the Glacia Defense Force and began fighting them off. Frost was too young to properly remember the war, but from stories he heard, things were tough in the initial stages. The Namekians were monsters, coming in the dead of night and spawning dark, mutated creatures that attack cities at random. The Iceling population was nearly wiped out within the first year, as most of them were unremarkable, having barely the same strength as normal Namekians. Glacia was the only one strong enough to properly fend them off, and as he trained and fought, he was able to grow stronger, until eventually, he was able to completely finish off the commander of the Namekian forces, causing them to retreat. By this point, Frost was around 5, and while he wanted to join the war efforts, Glacia told him to stay there and help rebuild. Meanwhile, the older Iceling took his strongest men and, using a captured Namekian, used one of their ships to fly off-world. As Frost grew up, he heard stories of his father going around the galaxy and learning of the atrocities of the Grand Namekian Empire. Apparently, these space slugs went from planet to planet, capturing it and using it for agriculture to support their home planet. These Namekians acted as the guardians of these planets, forcing the population to either join their armies or become farmers. Glacia had gone around the nearby galaxies and was slowly liberating said planets, including one with a powerful race named the Saiyans. Slowly, Glacia grew a small army and was taking the fight to the Namekian homeworld, where he planned to finish off their Grand Commander named Lord Slug. However, that was the day Glacia fell in battle. Frost never knew exactly who did it or how it happened, but the Glacia force was destroyed on planet Namek. He heard about it over the space radio, and while there were other Icelings there, he knew he was now alone in the world. While the crushing loneliness would usually be too much for someone of his age, Frost had been used to being alone. He was sad about his father's passing, yes, but he also knew he couldn't just wait around for the Namekians to come knocking. The Iceling had always been denied from fighting, but now he could go off and join the other races in fighting for justice. For the next 5 years, Frost trained to fight off any Namekians that dared step foot on his homeworld. He was now 15 and fully grown, being the most powerful Iceling on his planet by a large margin, although he knew he still wasn't as powerful as his father. By this point, the Namekians hadn't caused any more trouble, and the Glacia force had been turned into the Shallot Defense Force, since the Saiyans had taken over Glacia's task of protecting the galaxy. It was assumed the Namekians were building up an army, but so too was Shallot, led by Grand Admiral Turles and Captain Renzo. Frost had just sat down for dinner when his radio went off. Apparently, planet Mayene had several unauthorized spacecraft enter its orbit. Frost realized this planet was close by. It was just in the next solar system over. He could be there within an hour if he flew fast. The other Icelings discouraged him, but there was no stopping the son of Glacia. He was going to be a space hero like his father before him if it was the last thing he did. Frost prepared himself and flew off his home planet for the first time. The Iceling got to see the wonders of space with his own eyes, seeing the blues and reds of nearby gas giants, the icy rings of a faraway moon, and the many meteorites that flew by. This was wonderful, absolutely beautiful. Now he knew why his father spent so much time in space. This was truly a place he could gawk at for hours, if not days. However, Frost eventually made his way to planet Mayene, him spotting a city that was burning. He quickly raced in to see what was going on, and like he suspected, there on the ground was a green man with antennae and stretchy arms. Frost charged in and kicked the Namekian with all his might, saving a Mayan in the process. "Don't worry, I'm here. I'll take this guy out, no problem." Frost smiled at the Mayan. He felt like a real hero, like his father was to his people. However, this changed when the Namekian crawled out of a nearby building, sporting very little injuries. "Ah, nice hit. Father warned us there'd be strong opponents. I just never anticipated this so early." The Namekian, who looked far more scaly than Frost thought he'd look, then charged in and delivered a punch straight to his face. The Iceling was sent tumbling into a nearby building, hardly able to react when a series of ki blasts were launched at him. These blasts weren't enough to badly injure him, but wow was this painful. Maybe this space savior thing wasn't as fun as he thought. No, Frost couldn't just give up. He had to stand up and fight. That's what his father would do. Frost shakily stood and charged the Namekian, who easily caught him by the throat before slamming the Iceling into the ground. "Oh, come on, is that all you've got? If so, you'll be destroyed by me, Tambourine, demonic son of Lord Lesma." The mutated Namekian's hand began to glow, him about to blast Frost into smithereens. However, that's when a sudden blast sent Tambourine staggering back, clawing at his eyes. Frost looked over to see a Saiyan flying in. At least, he thought they were a Saiyan based on the armor. The man landed in front of Frost, facing off against Tambourine as his eyes healed. Several more mutated Namekians revealed themselves as well, but this mysterious warrior didn't seem to hesitate. And Frost quickly figured out why, as he destroyed the evildoers within seconds. This man's speed, his power, it was insane. He may even be as strong as his father. After the mutants were dealt with, the man turned around and helped Frost up. "Don't worry, you're safe now. I've taken out most of the mutants. We just have the pure Namekian to worry about now." Pure Namekian? Frost figured that's why they looked scaly, as opposed to the smooth-skinned warriors he heard about. "Yeah. Back when the war started, the Namekians sent 1 or 2 warriors in to spawn these mutants. Smart tactic for them. Now, speaking of smart tactics, you facing off against that mutant wasn't one. You should go to a shelter, kid. We have several on nearby planets." The Saiyan prepared to fly off, but Frost grabbed him by the arm. "My name is Frost, and I've been training for this day practically my whole life. I'm going with you to fight. I can do this." The Saiyan simply shook his head and sighed. "Do you know how many people say that? It takes years of proper training, not doing push-ups in your backyard. And even then, casualties still happen. I can't let some random civilian come fight with me." The Saiyan then used his communicator to call someone that would pick up Frost, since he knew the young Iceling would likely follow him into battle anyway. As the two waited, Frost learned the Saiyan's name was Shallot, and he had fought in the original war as well. The Iceling was fascinated at this, asking if the Saiyan could regale him with stories of past battles, but Shallot was dismissive of this request. The two then sat in silence until another Saiyan flew in, this one being much skinnier in frame. Shallot addressed this Saiyan as Cabba and asked that he escort Frost back to their base to be shipped off to some random planet. The Iceling once again begged to be allowed to fight, but Shallot ignored him. That was until both the Saiyans' faces went pale. Frost couldn't tell what was going on, but he could hear the explosions rumbling off in the distance, and knew it must be related. Shallot quickly flew in some direction, followed by Cabba and Frost, though he tried to stay far away so as to not be detected. "Listen, you two. You should stay out of this. From what I heard, it seems to be a pure Namekian. These guys are monsters compared to the mutants. You should try to find any surviving ships and fly away from here." "I won't just abandon you, Sergeant. I'll help in any way I can," Cabba yelled out with the same youthful enthusiasm Frost had, the Iceling nodding in agreement. The three eventually made it to a large outpost made of several spaceships and barricades surrounding them. Several soldiers in Saiyan armor were scattered on the ground, with only 2 left standing, shooting blasts at a giant green man. Shallot burst over and kicked the Slug away from them, before launching a series of powerful blasts in his direction. Frost was surprised at the brutality and efficiency of this Saiyan. However, this wasn't enough to destroy the Namekian, who shot his stretchy arms out and grabbed Shallot by the neck. The two were pulled towards each other, with the Namekian delivering a knee to the Saiyan's stomach, sending him doubling over.
That was all you could take. I thought you Saiyans were supposed to be training this whole time. Now, where's Renzo? Please tell me he's on this planet. I really want my rematch. Gotta repay him for this.
The Namekian forced Shallot to look him in the eyes, showing off a large portion of his face that had been burned. Shallot suddenly shot a large ki blast at the evildoer's eyes, attempting to blind him once again. It worked, but it was instantly healed, and he threw the Saiyan back to the ground before stomping on him.
Please, cheap tricks like that won't work on me. Don't you know who I am? I'm Lesma, demonic lord of the Namekian Empire.
Now, this is the point where both Frost and Cabba shot a large ki blast at Lesma, causing him to stagger off of Shallot. This allowed the Saiyan to stand and begin charging a ki blast of his own, the Wild Break Cannon. Lesma had just regenerated from his previous attack, only to see a wave of energy flying right at him. He was barely able to dodge, losing his arm and leg in the blast, but was overall okay. Frost and Cabba were terrified once Lesma regenerated. If an attack like that couldn't defeat him, what were they supposed to do? But Shallot, he could tell. This guy was powerful, but regenerating always made Namekians weaker, and after an arm and a leg, this guy had lost some serious power. Shallot calmed himself and adopted a defensive stance, parrying the next attack Lesma threw at him. The two flew around the battlefield, their clashes sending shockwaves that pushed Frost back. The Iceling was amazed that two people this powerful could even exist. He could barely even keep up with the battle. Maybe this guy was even more powerful than his father. While Frost was gawking, Cabba's smile began to fade. Initially, it seemed like Shallot was winning, but he was taking far more hits than Lesma. It was true, they were on much more even terms, but the Saiyan was getting his butt handed to him.
Even after being weakened, you still can't beat me. That's a testament to the might of the Namekians.
Lesma used an axe kick to send Shallot careening into the ground, before flying down and slamming an elbow into the Saiyan's back. Frost and Cabba watched in horror as Lesma began kicking and stomping on the sergeant, causing him to scream in agony. The Namekian was enjoying this, laughing as he tortured his prey, but this caused him to completely forget anyone else was there. Both Cabba and Frost's despair turned into anger. How could someone be so cruel to another living being? The two knew they didn't have the power to do anything, but they couldn't just sit there. While Lesma kicked Shallot in the ribs, he felt a sudden spike in power and turned to see both the boys flying right at him. The two grimaced and stuck their fist out at Lesma, connecting right with his chest and completely knocking the air out of him, maybe even more. The Namekian stumbled back, trying to suck air back into his lungs, while Shallot shakily stood and poured the last of his ki into his fist. After watching the two others, it gave him an idea for a new move, something he'd call the Wild Tyrant Lancer. Shallot raced forward and plunged his fist into Lesma, the ki blast acting as a sword and blasting right through his chest.
Don't underestimate the power of us little guys.
Shallot pulled his hand out of Lesma, and they simultaneously fell to the ground.
You won't get away with this. They'll avenge my death and destroy you Saiyans. You're nothing compared to Lord Slug.
With that, Lesma passed into Otherworld, while Cabba went to aid Shallot. He had some broken ribs and definitely needed medical attention, but didn't seem too injured. Slowly, all the non-combatants exited the nearby ships, the medics especially. As someone came over and inspected Shallot, Frost looked at his hand. then to the unalived Lesma. He wondered if being a hero meant ending evildoers' lives, or if there was a better way. Hopefully one day he could be stronger than Shallot. Maybe then he could have captured Lesma instead of just ending him. He then also noticed a small needle protruding from his wrist. Where the hiffle did that come from? Frost flexed his forearm, sending the needle back into a small hole under his wrist. Whoa, did he accidentally use this in the fight? Did it even do anything? Probably not. It didn't look like it did much damage, if any at all.
Hey kid, I know you're busy admiring your fist, but look at me for a sec.
Shallot sat up, before remembering his ribs looked more like shredded cheese than bones, and promptly laid back down.
My name is Frost, and I'm 15. I'm hardly a child.
The Iceling crossed his arms.
Yeah. Anyways, you showed some guts out there. Maybe you're not trained up yet, but I think I can fix that.
Wait, are you saying that I could?
Yeah, I am. Now, what's your answer?
Frost took a second to think. He thought this would be a piece of cake, that this hero business was something pretty tame. You just go out, stop the bad guy, and everyone loves you. But here, Shallot lost several comrades and nearly died himself, a fate which nearly befell Frost as well. If this was what his father did all the time, perhaps Frost was nothing like him after all. But he wanted to be, and he could start with this. Alright, where do I sign up? Shallot smiled, and Cabba welcomed the Iceling to the defense force. Frost spent the rest of the day cleaning up with whoever else the force could spare. It wasn't glorious, hardly befitting the son of a war hero, but it was a start, and he enjoyed seeing people thank him for the support. Perhaps this hero business wouldn't be so bad, after all. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on a dark, bleak planet sat Lord Slug, with 6 Namekians kneeling before him.
The Elder has informed me that Lesma fell in battle, but you fine lords succeeded, and for that, each of the worlds you conquered will be yours.
The various Namekians grinned, but Slug didn't look very happy.
Lesma was a weakling, yes, but he was still powerful amongst our regular warriors, aside from one, the new 7th Lord, known as Narak.
Slug gestured towards a figure who had been hiding in the corner of the room. The cloaked Namekian stepped forward, his mouth barely visible, though the color was all off. He was a dark green, perhaps even black.
A pleasure to join your ranks, brothers. I promise, I will succeed where my predecessor failed, starting with ending that pathetic Saiyan Shallot.
But that's where we're going to end this part. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate you lancing that like button, or maybe even accidentally poisoning the subscribe button. I know this part was a little short, but it was incredibly experimental, so I wanted to make something short and sweet and see what you guys thought about it. I know some people enjoy Salad and Masako going totally bonkers and making their own arcs, and I hope I can do the same here. Either way, if you made it this far, thank you for watching and listening to the ramblings of a cringy weeb. You guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.